Think back to your third birthday. Try to see the cake. Try to hear the song. Chances are you can't. You were there. You were the main character of that day. Someone clapped. Someone laughed. Someone probably cried, and it might have been you. And yet the memory is simply gone, vanished without a trace, as if that day belonged to someone else entirely. Most people assume it's because a 3-year-old brain is too small, too undeveloped, too unfinished to hold on to anything. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain was recording. It just wasn't keeping the tape. Scientists call this infantile amnesia. The term isn't new. Sigmund Freud coined it back in 1905, long before anyone could scan a living brain or trace a single neuron. He noticed something odd in his patients. Adults could recall almost nothing from before the age of 3 or 4, even though those years are packed with first words, first steps, first heartbreaks, the entire foundation of a personality being laid down in real time. Freud guessed the cause was repression, a kind of psychological hiding, as if the mind were burying something too overwhelming to keep in plain view. He was wrong about the mechanism, but he was right about one thing. Something deliberate is happening in there. Your mind isn't failing to remember your early years, it's actively letting them go. So what is actually going on inside that very young brain? To understand it, you first have to understand what a memory even is. A memory isn't a video file sitting in a drawer somewhere in your skull, waiting to be replayed on demand. It's a pattern, a web of neurons that fire together and wire together, stitched into a structure deep in your brain called the hippocampus. Picture the hippocampus as a librarian. Its job is to take a moment as it happens and file it carefully on a shelf so you can find it again later. The problem is, that librarian doesn't start the job fully trained. In early childhood, the library itself is still being built around her, walls going up, shelves being moved, the whole floor plan changing week to week. Patricia Bauer, a memory researcher at Emory University, has spent decades studying exactly how memory develops in toddlers. Her work reveals something genuinely surprising. Young children absolutely do form memories, and they form them well. A 2-year-old can describe something that happened to them last week in accurate detail. A 3-year-old can recall a trip to the zoo for months afterward, naming the animals, the smells, even small jokes someone made. So the memories are clearly there, at least for a while. The mystery isn't whether babies remember. Babies remember constantly. The real mystery is why none of those memories survive the journey into adulthood. Here's where it gets even stranger. In 2014, neuroscientists Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn at the University of Toronto ran a set of experiments that completely reframed the question. They studied infant mice, which experience their own version of infantile amnesia, forgetting early experiences far faster than adult mice do. The young brain, they found, is in a constant state of frantic construction. New neurons are being born inside the hippocampus at an extraordinary rate, especially during the first years of life. This process is called neurogenesis, which simply means the birth of brand new brain cells. That sounds like it should be a good thing. More neurons should mean more memory capacity, more room to grow, right? Franklin and Jocelyn found the opposite. Every new neuron has to physically wire itself into the existing circuitry of the brain, and when it does, it can disrupt the very connections that were quietly holding old memories in place. Picture a library where a construction crew is constantly tearing down shelves to install new ones faster than the books can be reshelved. The early memories aren't lost because they were too faint or too weak to begin with. They're lost because the brain that stored them is busy rebuilding its own architecture over and over, far faster than memories can ever take root. Why would evolution design a brain that erases itself like that? Doesn't that sound like a flaw? Almost a design failure? Here is the twist that changes everything. It isn't a flaw at all. It's the price of extraordinarily rapid learning. A baby's brain has to absorb an almost impossible amount of new information in an incredibly short window of time. It has to learn an entire language from nothing. It has to learn faces, gravity, cause and effect, danger, comfort, trust, the basic physical and social rules of an entire world, essentially from a blank slate. To pull that off, the brain needs maximum flexibility, not maximum storage. Stability and flexibility are in constant tension inside every brain at every age, and in early childhood, the brain leans almost entirely towards flexibility, sacrificing long-term storage for the sake of speed. So if those young memories aren't permanently stored, does that mean they're gone forever? Erased without a trace? Not exactly, and this is where the story gets genuinely unsettling. Researchers have found that early memory traces, called engrams, don't necessarily disappear completely. They may simply become unreachable, like a locked room rather than a demolished one. In follow-up studies on mice, scientists found ways to artificially reactivate what looked like long-forgotten early memories using carefully targeted stimulation of specific neurons. The information hadn't vanished after all. The pathway leading to it had simply been bulldozed during construction. Your earliest self might still be sitting in there somewhere, sealed behind a door that no longer has a handle. This should change how you think about your own childhood. You don't actually have a blank file covering the years from 0 to 3. You have a sealed one. Every odd emotional habit you carry, every flinch you can't explain, every strange comfort you reach for without knowing why, may have its roots buried in moments you will never consciously retrieve. Does that thought unsettle you a little? It probably should. It means a meaningful portion of who you are was assembled using instructions you will never get the chance to read back. And here's the part almost nobody talks about, the part that complicates the story even further. The memories you do have, the ones from age 4, 5, 6 onward, the ones that feel solid, vivid, and completely reliable, aren't actually as reliable as they feel either. Every single time you recall something, your brain doesn't play back a clean recording from storage. It reconstructs the moment from scattered fragments, and it rebuilds that moment slightly differently each time you revisit it. This is part of why two siblings can argue passionately about how a childhood event unfolded, each one absolutely certain they're the one remembering it correctly. Memory isn't a museum with fixed exhibits behind glass. It's a workshop. Every single visit changes the exhibit just a little. This is also why family photographs and repeated family stories matter so much more than most people realize. Research on autobiographical memory in young children shows that the more a parent narrates a shared experience out loud afterward, walking a child back through what happened, who was there, how everyone felt, the more likely fragments of that period are to survive into later memory. In other words, some of what you confidently believe you remember from early childhood might not technically be a memory at all. It might be a story you were told so many times over so many years that your brain eventually filed it away as though you had lived it yourself, when really you only lived it secondhand through someone else's retelling. Think about what that means the next time you watch an old home video of yourself as a toddler. You're not watching a memory get refreshed. You're often watching a memory get created for the very first time, built right there on the couch as you watch, stitched together from a screen instead of from your own senses. The line between what you actually experienced and what you've simply absorbed from photos and family stories is far blurrier than it feels from the inside. There's a cultural layer to this story too, one most people never hear about. A psychologist named Chi Wang has spent years comparing the earliest memories adults report across different cultures, and the differences are striking. Adults raised in cultures that emphasize independence and personal storytelling, where children are frequently asked to describe their day, their feelings, their opinions, tend to report earliest memories that begin from noticeably younger ages.
Adults raised in cultures that emphasize family and group identity over individual narrative tend to report earliest memories that begin later, sometimes by a year or more. What does that tell you? The exact age your personal memory began wasn't fixed by biology alone. It was shaped, in part, by how often the people around you turned your experiences into a story out loud. Which raises an uncomfortable possibility. Does that mean a large share of what you call your earliest memory might not be a memory at all? Probably. Studies on this exact question have found that a surprising number of adults confidently describe vivid memories before age 2, complete with specific rooms, specific toys, specific tones of voice. Many of these are almost certainly reconstructions, built later out of photographs, family retellings, and a little imagination, then quietly filed away under the heading of lived experience. Not lies,